From CGTN headquarters in Beijing, this is The Hub with Wang Guan.
Hello and welcome to The Hub on CGTN. I'm Wang Guan in Beijing. Halfway through the competition at the Beijing Winter Olympics, 18-year-old Gu Ailing has won silver in the women's freeski slopestyle final. Earlier, she grabbed global headlines when she won her first gold medal in the women's big air freestyle skiing event. In addition to her Olympic debut, her career choice and life experience have also attracted a lot of attention and, quite frankly, some controversy too. Should we let sport be sport? And should we give her the freedom to live her own life and live her own dreams? For more on this and the ongoing Beijing Winter Olympics, I'm very happy to be joined by Yan Qiang, a veteran sports commentator and founder of Score Sports, and also by Remigio Brunelli, Vice Chair of Sport Forum at European Chamber. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Mr. Yan Qiang, let me start with you. By the way, I'm a big fan of your columns. Grew up watching and reading your columns. Let's talk about Ailing Gu, a phenomenal figure. She's just become one of the only two female athletes who have made it to the podium of both big air and slope style. Quite an achievement. Do you think she has lived up to all the expectations before the Games?
Oh yes, absolutely. I think she's a wonderful or even freakish genius in the Winter Olympics, and she performed with a smile on her face, and she's bi-national or bi-cultural, in the American and Chinese style. She's the perfect model for these Olympics.
And then, Yan Qiang, you've covered sports for so many decades. What do you think is behind her success? Because she's quite unique. I mean, she's different from any other athlete.
I would consider Ailing as a cultural figure for the current society, or for this time, for this era. Maybe put her on the level as a kind of a national hero worship is a step too far, but she represents the Z generation. I mean, the generation born after 2000. They are growing up in the social media and mobile internet era, and they are more open to the world and open to all kinds of cultural influences, and they are brave to stick to their own principles, their own lifestyle choices. So it's very inspiring and heartwarming to see her perform.
Yeah, it's also heartwarming to see her love for Chinese food, the 韭菜盒子, that made, Weibo Russell yesterday, the trending on the social media.
And that's nothing commercial.
It's so good and so yum. I love it. Many Chinese love it. Remigio, let me go to you. As a European watching the ongoing Beijing Winter Olympics, what is the biggest story for you so far?
A lot of story, I guess, Van. It's definitely the... sorry, I got the return of my voice. It's a little bit complicated, so I try to. As the most important for me has been really incredible how the China Olympic Committee has been able to develop in such an amazing Olympics in a COVID-19, and that has been very astonishing. I spoke with some people inside of the bubble, and they told me that almost everything is perfect according to the consideration. For me, the part that is quite impressive, it's that you can have a winner from 16 to 41 years old. So the Olympics is a very cross over cultural activities. And personally, what I'm really appreciated has been to move in the big air competition in the heart of the one of the important area of Beijing, the Xigan. So bringing the winter sports down to the city, and even because it's not just a sport, but it's also a sustainability process and activities that it's to reconditioning in a large surface of old factory, and now it's becoming a very important area for play sports and activities.
Right, Yan Qiang, let me turn back to you. Talking about Gu Ailing, some right-wing U.S. commentators called Ailing's decision to represent China, quote-unquote, ungrateful. And some other, right-wing extremist commentators even used harsher words on this 18-year-old, saying that somehow She's letting America down, betraying America. Your thoughts on this?
Oh, I think that's just the opposite of that. Is her attitude of showing gratefulness towards both countries. The country where her mother was from and was raised up, and especially the city. In my acknowledgement that her mother was a typical Beijing girl, or we call Beijing big girl. And she grew up in America from San Francisco, and she learned her skills on skiing. And at the same time, Ailing is also a very good runner, maybe close to professional level. That's her performance on these Olympics and on all these skiing matches, showing that her gratitude towards China and to America. And we cannot just simply consider her to be a typical American girl or a Chinese girl. She's bilingual as well as bi-national.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I was wondering when can people let sport be sport, right? Ailing Gu herself in 2019 said, talking about her decision to represent China instead of America, she said the opportunity to help inspire millions of young people where my mom was from is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to really help promote the sport she loves. How do you see her gold medal and now the silver medal, and she's going to compete in her third event? How do you see all that inspire the next generation of Chinese to take up winter sports?
I think she's already a great inspiration. And we have already witnessed the huge traffic on social media with the hashtag Ailing Gu and Ailing Gu gold medal, Ailing Gu eating some typical Chinese food. She's closely linked with this sport activity. And China, traditionally, we're not a huge nation on winter sports, especially not on snowy skiing sports disciplines. And whatever you're talking about her, especially even when she's appearing on all kinds of adverts, on commercials, you would always link her with these winter sports. And that's going to be the best way to promote, to market these sports in China.
Right. Remigio, let me turn back to you. As a European, how do you look at all this? I mean, how do you look at China's decision to naturalize foreign-born people, residents, who may or may not have Chinese heritage to represent Team China in the Olympics?
No, I mean, the naturalization in sports has always been so it's not today, of course, people, they criticize, but they have probably a short memory or a little vision, and perhaps I would like to say even they are a little bit envy, because especially the success of Ailing Gu today, it's unbelievable. But I would like to say that we need to go over this kind of concept, because even in other sports, as I said, and not necessarily the naturalization is going to bring in a successful story. So it's a full package of elements that has to be combining together in order to be successful. It's not just to change in the flag or the nationality that you became a champion or not. Therefore, I think that this kind of process, it's not so bad. Has to be handled correctly from the athletes, and in particular for Ellen, as my colleague before said, she's a promoter and she's an influencer. So I see just positive results for this kind of decision from her. Definitely.
Yan Qiang, talking about naturalization, we've heard from Remigio.
Oh, no.
How do you feel about the naturalization for Team China? We've seen foreign-born nationals on China's ice hockey team, skating team, skiing team, of course. Some 16 out of the 25 China's ice hockey players, male players, were born overseas. How do you feel about all this?
Wang Guan, I know where this topic is leading to. Can we not talk about football afterwards? In winter sports, in Winter Olympics alone, I would say this kind of naturalization is a temporary method, because China, as a host nation, we are pretty weak in the competitiveness of the Winter Olympics. We had won just one gold medal for the past Olympics held in Korea. Therefore, if this Olympians, they have Chinese heritage, is a shortcut to recruit talents on a global sense. And it also shows a broad view of how we form our Team China. But in other sports disciplines, as the topic that you are going to mention, it's another story. It's a disaster.
You know, I think we have about 2 minutes left. Yan Qiang, you know, you've been covering football for the longest time.
We need 2 hours, 2 days.
People have been lashing out on Chinese men's football team recently. Your take on where should the change start to, you know, improve men's football? And then later, Remigio. Yan Qiang, go first.
We need just to give more kids the chance to taste and play the sport. You know, we're talking about, you know, getting more people on skiing, on winter sports, and we did it. But in football, it's another story. It's just too long a story, and we cannot go details in 2 minutes' time. Sorry about that.
Okay, I'll come back next time. Sorry for the time constraint, but do come back, Yan Qiang. Remigio, what about you? How do you think? What do you think?
I'm agreed from what I heard before. I mean, it's a long story, but I would like to say that just for me, I came in China in 2005, and I just making a comparison with Yao Ming in the basketball. I think that Ailing could be for the winter sports. So actually is a star, is an influencer. She has a smiling. She's a, as you say, is a Generation Z communicator. So I think that is a great experience and opportunity for developing all the system, because as I said, it's not just a blink that is going to bring in the cultural education and champion. So it's a great starting point, and the Olympics represented a starting point for the future of the winter sports in China.
Remigio Brunelli and Yan Qiang, thank you both so very much, gentlemen. Thank you for coming on our show. You've been watching The Hub. In the next part, I will be talking to Benjamin Alexander, Jamaica's first Olympic Alpine skier. Stay tuned. Welcome back. From a globe-trotting DJ to Jamaica's first Olympic Alpine skier, Benjamin Alexander is living the dreams of many. He carried Jamaica's flag during the opening ceremony and replied to a letter to a Chinese primary school student. Earlier, I spoke with Benjamin about his fascinating journey to become an Olympian. Hi, Ben. Welcome to CGTN. Congratulations on your, completing your first Olympic event. What was it like? How do you feel now?
It was incredible. I feel amazing. I feel happy to have finished the course, which I think 50% of the starting field didn't do.
50%? How come?
Yeah. It was the conditions were so incredibly challenging.
Yeah, I saw the snow. Wow.
There was so much snow. A lot of people think that snowing is good. Snow is good for ski racing. It's the opposite. We prefer ice. And so the conditions were really challenging. As I said, 50% of the contenders didn't finish.
So you finished the race.
I did.
All things considered, you would have ranked a lot higher if you think about the fact that many people dropped out.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, look, for me, I wasn't really coming into this to be a competitor. Part of the Olympics is the best of the best of the best, the elite, the best in the world. The other part of the Olympics is participation. And I'm definitely on that side of the equation. And bringing Jamaica into a new discipline of alpine skiing is what this was all about for me.
I think many people would argue that you're the epitome of the word participation, because you were a DJ, a globe-trotting DJ, enjoying his life 6 years ago. And then one day you decided to learn skiing, and 6 years later, here you are at the Beijing Winter Olympics, competing in your first Olympic event. How did that happen?
Yeah, it sounds crazy, doesn't it?
It's insane.
I'm kind of a fanatic. Yeah, I'm kind of a fanatical person. Once I go down the rabbit hole, I go really deep and I go really, really far. I just wanted to be good enough to ski with my friends. That was it. And eventually, after kind of keeping up with some of them, the jokes were made of Cool Runnings, obviously the 1993 Disney movie and the Jamaican bobsled team. And, you should go to the Olympics. And I guess I just took that a little bit too seriously. So here we are today.
And then, of course, initially there must have been a whole lot of thrill and excitement, thinking about becoming a pro or even joining the Olympics. But later on, I'm sure through the span of the 6 years, there must have been moments where you're like, man, this is bored, right? This is boring. This is repetition. Were there moments you thought maybe you're going to give up?
Absolutely. I wanted to give up 20 times each week, especially over the last year during the pandemic, where competitions were taken away from me because of closed borders or canceled races. And it was just, over the last 2 years, I've really been fighting against the pandemic. And there were many moments I thought this wasn't going to happen. So yeah, I wanted to give up multiple times each week, each month.
And then how did you overcome all those ideas and then still kept going?
Look, I invested a lot into this. I invested a lot of time. I invested a lot of money. I also invested a lot of my reputation. And when I'm about to embark on something crazy, I like to put my word out there and kind of set my intention and put it in very, very public view. And so I always look back to how things will look if I fail to do that. And I'm a man of my word, and I like to keep my word at any cost. And so in those moments of desperation, when I thought I was going to fail, I still just kept my head down and kept plugging away and just tried to get close to that finish line. And here we are, it worked.
So to some extent, it was fear of perhaps not being, good enough or not living up to your fullest potential.
No, I think it's fear of my word not having the value that I kind of esteem it to have. And so I do this on purpose. There are many times in life where I'll make a crazy change or I'll make a crazy decision, and I'll be very public with that so that my friends and my social circle hold me accountable to that idea and to that task. Many people have decided to go onto a diet, but they do it in quiet. They don't tell anyone. And then after a couple of days, they give up, but it's okay because no one knew they were trying this thing. If you hold yourself accountable and you use the social pressure of your friends in a positive way, then it can motivate you to keep doing that thing when it becomes really hard and really challenging.
Benjamin, you once said that if you can do it, everyone can do it. But I mean, let's face it, right? Not everyone has the same talent, and it's very nice of you to say that to encourage people. But at the end of the day, not everyone has the equal shot at becoming an Olympian. Would you recognize that?
Yeah, look, the only reason that I qualified is because I'm coming to this project after having worn many professional hats before this project. And each one of them played a role, whether that was marketing myself as a DJ, whether that was the world of finance, understanding how to kind of manage a budget. And I think had I been 10 or 15 10 or 15 years younger, I would have failed in certain other aspects. But what I'm trying to set up here is a platform for other kids to just be able to focus on being the athlete. I am by no stretch of the imagination Jamaica's best skier, but I was able to bring a whole group of talents together to get me to the finish line. Now that I've shown that it's possible, other athletes will have a much easier path of getting to the Olympics, and I hope to be right beside them and helping them do so.
Talk to me about the fitness part, the physique, the techniques that are required to become an alpine skier, because I assume the threshold was, still high for many because you're battling it out on snow, on a very slippery slope.
Yeah, look, coming into the sport so late, beginning at 32 and having my first race at the age of 36, I'm so far behind all of my competitors. And it's such a technical sport that requires, the athletes to start really, really young in life.
Yeah, I know. Some people started at 3 or 4, right? You started at 32.
Well, look, most of my competitors actually would have started skiing before their second birthday. And some of them would have even started race training by the age of 4. And I've seen on the hill kids aged 3.5 doing the same training that I'm doing, just 35 years younger. So those are the people that I'm competing with. But there are Jamaicans out there, and there are minorities out there that have that situation. I've interacted with some of them, but I just didn't know this thing was possible for them. And I'll be very blunt, it wasn't possible because I had to figure out how to make it work. Now I can help those athletes just focus on being athletes and bring more Jamaicans to the Olympics.
You talk about the fact that you're Jamaican, and for a tropical or a subtropical country like Jamaica, it's not precisely easy to take up winter sports and train systematically and be good at it, right? Because if you look at data, I don't want to sound biased, but if you look at data through history, 1/3 of all Winter Olympic medals went to countries situated around the Alps, and 1/6 of all Winter Olympic medals went to countries situated around the Scandinavian. Give us a sense of how difficult is it for people in Jamaica or a country in the tropical area to take up winter sports?
Incredibly difficult. And yeah, I thought those numbers would have been more biased to those parts of the world that you said. But one of the interesting things we have to understand is that, yes, there are almost 3 million Jamaicans on the island of Jamaica, but there are 2 million Jamaicans across the United Kingdom, the United States, and Canada. So the first wave of Jamaicans that will be able to qualify for the Olympics after this will be those from the diaspora, just like I am. I was born in the United Kingdom. But there are also many sports that offer a much easy transition from summer sports. For example, cross-country skiing. Unlike alpine skiing, which is 90% technique and really needs decades and decades of practice to get there, cross-country skiing, you can find an incredible athlete and teach him how to be good on cross-country skis within a matter of months. And this is something that I'm looking forward to setting up and helping the next generation of Jamaicans be able to achieve.
Well, I'm itching to try cross-country skiing, man, as a former competitive soccer player. Man, okay, let's talk about China. You've been in China for quite a while. How did China and the Chinese people, especially those in Beijing, make you feel?
I don't know if you guys saw, but I had lots of interactions with the volunteers and the staff that were here. There were many sessions where I was dancing at 4 in the morning, you know, with the volunteers.
Dancing?
Staff. It was just yeah.
Wow.
I have had a lot of fun with the volunteers. But what a lot of people don't realize is that I lived in Asia for 10 years. So I'm very familiar with this part of the world. I spent 4 years in Hong Kong, 4 years in Thailand. I spent a year in Bali and lots of time traveling around. I've DJ'd in Shanghai a bunch of times. I've visited Guangzhou and Shenzhen. So I'm very familiar with this part of the world.
And then how would you rate the organization and the venues? You know, this is a COVID Olympics, like it or not.
Yeah, so that's a good question. Look, I would prefer the Olympics as they are right now to the Olympics being cancelled or the Olympics being postponed. And so China has had to do something under incredibly complicated circumstances and an incredibly complicated situation. I also run events as one of the other hats that I wear. And I understand that the infrastructure and the organization that's put in place here is world class. I'm actually blown away by how organized they've been at moving people around, such as the operation of getting all of the athletes to the opening ceremony and closing down highways so that we would have an unhindered access to to Beijing, to the state. It's been a masterclass at event organization, I will say.
So Ben, I also know that recently you had a bit of an interaction with the primary school student here in China. Tell us about that.
Yeah, no, that was so great. So basically, look, as Olympic athletes, we're kind of a sought-after commodity. Lots of companies want to give us products so that we will post about them and give them, you know, some marketing spend, shall we say. One of the gifts that I noticed, and no one else was posting about it, everyone was posting about the new cell phone they had, were these drawings that came from primary school kids. The interesting thing that touched me was not only that they are much better artists than I could ever be, but also their contact details were on the back. And so I made a little video about these pictures. I reached out to the kids and it went viral. A couple of my friends recorded my Instagram story and put it on Bilibili and Douyin. Oh, I don't know how to pronounce that. And it's had over 2 million hits. And so I've been interacting with the father of one of the artists for the last few days. We tried to get him to come out to Beijing to view my event today. Unfortunately, he lives 1,000 miles away, and it was just too late and too difficult.
That's so sweet. I mean, what a sweet story. We also know that you are making a living as a DJ, or at least you were. Are you going to go back to do more DJ than sport, or what's your plan for the future?
No, look, DJing is behind me. Also, ski racing is behind me now. I'm done. I'm officially retired. I will be involved in kind of, you know, the upbringing of the next generation of Jamaican athletes. I hope to become the president of the Jamaican Ski Federation to really help with that. But I have a few plans in place. I'd like to do something in the technology sector. Lots of things are up in the air right now. I just finished this project 2 hours ago.
Wow. And then now I can call you an Olympian, as an athlete, as a DJ turned athlete. What would you tell our audience who could be in their millions watching this show? Why sport?
Look, there's a certain level of discipline that is required to get good at sport. I am blown away by the discipline that is taught to the young ski racers. They are up at the crack of dawn to get the best ski racing conditions. Then they have to go to school, and after school they have to spend hours tuning their skis so that they can be in optimum condition and taking care of these expensive pieces of equipment. And you know, definitely when I have kids, my kids will ski race. I won't ever force them to compete, but the discipline that is taught through sport, and in particular ski racing, as I have a very close view on that right now, is amazing, and I think a lot more people should try it.
Any final thoughts, words to your fans here in China?
I'm going to try and say it. Dao Yai? No, that's wrong.
加油.
Jiao,
That was
that's
close,
it.
man. Yeah, that was close.
I almost got it. Jiao.
That's it?
Yeah, no, look, the Chinese government has the intention of getting 300 million people into winter sports. And if that happens, that's going to be incredible for everyone. And I really hope that comes true. This is an incredible facility that you guys have here in Yan Qiang. And I hope it doesn't sit vacant and empty like a lot of other Olympic facilities have done over the past decades. Come out here, come and have a look, get a ski lesson, rent some equipment, see what it's all about.
Benjamin Alexander, thank you so much. And good luck for all your future endeavors.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks
man.
for having
Take
me.
care. And that's all we have for this edition of The Hub. Tell us what you think about our program by sending us a message on Weibo, Douyin, Twitter, Facebook, or other social media platforms. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Wang Guan in Beijing. Our news coverage continues.